Hi, I'm Jesse with One Heart Fire. I'd like to show you how to make your own bicycle panniers using kitty litter buckets. These panniers have a large capacity, they're pretty much waterproof, but the best part is they only cost about $40 to make a pair. It's even less if you can find somebody with a cat to give you the buckets for free. I based the design off of these panniers, which use springs, a metal ring, and hooks to hold the bag onto the rack. The ring hooks to the bottom of the rack and provides tension for the hooks which go over the top and support the weight. Here are the materials you will need to make one pannier. You need one 35-pound bucket of kitty litter, along with this hardware found at your local hardware store. You will also need to make some wooden spacers. You'll need 2 spacers, 1/2 inch by 1 inch by 2 3/4 inches, and you'll need 4 spacers, 1/2 inch by 1 1/4 inches by 2 3/4 inches. I cut mine out of a finished oak board. Along with these, you will need 2 6-inch by 3/4 inch metal brackets, 6 1/4 inch by 1 inch bolts, 4 1/4 inch by 1/2 inch bolts, and 10 1/4 inch locking nuts. You will also need some 1/4 inch fender washers, 4 at 3/4 inches, 4 at 1 inch, and 6 at 1 1/4 inches, 2 3-inch extension springs, 2 1/2 inch by 1 inch L brackets, a 1 inch welded metal ring, and about 6 to 10 inches of nylon strap. You can find this materials list in the details section of the video. Here are some of the tools I would suggest using. You'll need a ruler, a marker, a lighter, along with a butane torch, a hammer, some good pliers, and a nice thick screwdriver or metal rod, a drill with a 1/4 inch drill bit, a vise, and some work gloves, along with the wrench and sockets that fit your nuts and bolts, and a utility knife. This is an intermediate level DIY project. If you're not familiar with the use of these tools, please find someone who is to help you. The first step is to remove the lid from the bucket to make it easier to work with. You can do this by bending up the corners closest to the hinge. You need to use a little bit of force, but not too much, because you don't want to break the plastic. Next, strap the bucket to your rack to find the right position. Lower is better. You want to make sure you clear your derailleur and all the cables. Also, make sure that you can pedal without having your heels hit the bucket. Then make marks where you want your hooks to be. Wider is better, but not too close to the corners. Also mark out the position of your rack for reference, and be sure to mark out the position of the hook at the bottom. Now it's time to make your hooks. This is what they should look like when you're finished. Notice that the holes on the bracket are countersunk on one side and flat on the other. On this side, use your ruler to make a mark a 1/2 inch from the right side of this hole. Next, line this mark up with the edge of your vise. You also want to make sure that the top of the bracket is lined up with the top of your vise, so everything is straight. Then use your hammer to bend the bracket to a 90-degree angle. You may find that the bend was not perfectly straight. If this is the case, put the end into your vise and use your hammer to straighten it out. At this point, it is important to insert a 1-inch bolt into the hole nearest the bend, otherwise you won't be able to put it in there later. Now, take your large screwdriver or metal rod and clamp it into the vise. Now light your propane torch and use it to heat the metal near the bend. Make sure to do this in a well-ventilated area, as heating the galvanized metal will release toxic fumes. Make sure to get it nice and hot before you try to bend it. If the bolt has fallen out, be sure to put it back in before you bend. You can hold it on there with one of your nylock nuts to make sure it won't come out. Just don't heat it up with the torch. Use your hammer to bend the metal around the rod. You may find this takes a couple tries. Heat the metal most where you want the bend to be. It should be about right here. You may find that the back of the bracket has bent around the hole. If this is the case, use your screwdriver to pry it back straight again. You might find it helpful to place the screwdriver and bracket on top of your vise and hammer it down to finish off the bend. When you're all done, it should look like this. Now test the fit of your hook on your rack. If you find that it doesn't fit, use your screwdriver to pry it out until the gap is wide enough. When you're done bending the hooks, get the entire area nice and hot and drop it immediately into a bucket of water. This is called tempering and will make the hook stronger. Now drill holes into the center of 2 of the larger wood blocks. Line these holes up between the marks you made for your hooks, and push the wood block up against the plastic lip. Then drill holes into the bucket. Do this on both sides. You can use your utility knife to clean up any extra plastic from the holes you just drilled. Now push the 1-inch bolt from your finished hook through the wood spacer and then through the bucket. Then you can use your 1.25-inch fender washer and one of your lock nuts to secure the hook to the bucket. Do this on both sides as well. Once both hooks are attached, make sure they're straight and then put the smaller of your wood blocks into this small notch here. Use your marker to mark out where that hole is. Now take one of your larger wooden blocks and put it in the bottom. Also mark out where this hole should be. Do the same on the other side. The position of this hook doesn't let this block go under the hole, so I'm not going to use it. Setting the hooks wider will avoid this problem, as long as it doesn't interfere with your rack. Drill holes where you've made your marks. Now take one of your larger blocks and put it back into position, making sure everything is straight. Use your drill to drill another hole through the bucket. Do the same on the other side of the bucket, again lining up the holes and making sure everything is straight. Drill the center holes as well, making sure nothing has moved. It helps to take one of your 1-inch bolts and put it through the bottom holes while drilling the center holes to keep things from moving. Again, use your utility knife to clean up any plastic burrs from the holes. Now put everything back together, inserting your 1-inch bolts through the holes. Now use the rest of your 1.25-inch washers along with the nylock nuts to attach the hooks to the bucket. These large washers will spread out the force from the hooks and make sure that the plastic bucket doesn't crack around the holes. Now use your wrench and your ratchet to tighten all the bolts. You want them to be snug, but don't tighten them too much or you might crack the plastic. Next, we need to flatten out these brackets so that we can attach the springs to the bucket. Place them in your vise and close it until they are almost flat. Do this with both brackets. They should be left with a slight angle. Now we need to attach the springs to the brackets. Use pliers to bend the spring a little bit so that you can get it into the hole of the bracket. Then use the pliers to bend the spring back. It may also be possible to simply push the bracket or rings through the back of the coil onto the spring. When you're done, you should have something that looks like this. Now position the springs on the bucket so there's a couple inches between the mark you made for your hook and the ring. Also spread the brackets out wide so that both hooks will have tension. Use your marker to mark where these holes should be. And then drill the holes through the bucket. Now using your 1/2 inch bolt and 2 1-inch fender washers, attach the bracket to the bucket. Place the bolt through the bracket, through a washer, and then through the bucket. Put another washer on the back side, and then top it off with your nylock nut. Do the same with the other bracket. And when you're done, it should look like this. Tighten up these nuts and bolts, and you're ready to test fit it on the bike. Hook the ring on the bottom of your rack, and then place the hooks over the top bar. At this point, we would be done, except there's nothing to keep the bucket from swinging out to the side. This is what the nylon strap is for. Position the strap a little bit above your ring and measure out the length that you need. Cut the strap with scissors, and then use a lighter to melt the ends so that it doesn't fray. You can use the edge of the lighter to smooth it out, or your fingers if you don't mind a little burn. Place the strap back into position, and then mark out holes about 1 inch from each end of the strap. Then drill your holes. Remember to clean up the holes with your utility knife when you're done. Now, using a pen, make a hole about 1 inch from one end of the strap. Make the hole big enough that you can fit your bolt through. Using a 1/2 inch bolt and a 3/4 inch fender washer, screw the bolt through the strap. Now place this bolt through one of the holes you just drilled, and attach it with another 3/4 inch washer and bolt. Tighten the nut and bolt with your ratchet and wrench, making sure that the strap stays straight. Now stretch the strap across the springs and use your pen to mark where the hole is. Again, make the hole big enough to screw your bolt through. Use another 1/2 inch bolt and 2 3/4 inch washers to attach this strap through the bucket. Now this strap will keep the springs from stretching away from the bucket. Hook the bucket onto the rack for one final test fit. Now all you have to do is put the lid back on the bucket with the flap facing backwards so it's not opened by the wind. You can hook your panniers onto the bike by placing your thumbs on the rack and pulling up on the ridges on the side of the bucket. You can also use the handle to attach the bucket to the rack. This way, the handle stays up while you're riding, but it does make it easier to get the pannier off the bike. If you like, you can use sandpaper to remove the graphics from the bucket. These bucket panniers are a great low-cost option that allows you to carry lots of gear for bicycle touring. I'm touring with them right now. For more information about our tour, our mission, do-it-yourself projects, permaculture, and more, please visit oneheartfire.org.